Under point 2, second category of super grace blessings, we have the temporal blessings. I mentioned before again, spiritual blessings have to precede the temporal blessings, the material blessings, whatever it is. You have to have the capacity first. You have to have the moxie, the doctrine inside of your soul so that you can be able to enjoy the temporal blessings. What do you find often? Someone has a temporal blessing, he has no capacity for it, so as a result he ruins himself. That person who wins the lottery, he wins millions of dollars and he ruins himself. That person that gains fame from somewhere without the capacity for it, and he leaves his wife, the wife who has been loyal to him for all those years in the midst of poorness, in the midst of insignificance, whatever it is, she has remained loyal to him. But once he becomes rich, famous, whatever, he leaves her for the other one. And so, no capacity. They ruin themselves. So God makes sure that you have the capacity first. The capacity comes from maximum doctrine inside of your soul. Temporal blessings, what do we have? Riches. These are material, this is monetary riches, success, prominence in any sphere of life, promotion in any profession. So you have social prosperity. You're going to be able to have a few, 2 or 3 friends, wonderful friends. Or if you're one of those, Paul used to have a lot of friends. The Apostle Paul had a lot of friends, and they were one of those that were marvelous. They had virtue, they have loyalty, they were knew how to keep their mouth shut. They knew how to not intrude upon people's privacies. In other words, they were super grace types. Paul had a lot of friends, or you could be one of the Moses types, that he only had very little friends. In fact, he had no friends at all. He probably only had Joshua and Caleb. Finally, God gave him his right woman, the perfect woman for him to also have a friend in. So you could either be a Paul that has many friends, loyal and virtuous friends, or you could be a Moses that has very little friends. Sexual prosperity. And there's a lot of you guys now in this hypersexual society that you think you know everything about sex, and you're watching those YouTube reels or those reels on Instagram, and you think someone right there, so-called sex expert, is talking about you should do this and try that and do this. And you know what? You know nothing about the sex life. If you do not emphasize the soul, you do not know much about the sex life. Sex is a soul thing as well. Yes, the body as well, but you cannot exclude the soul. Well, God gives you sexual prosperity. Regardless if you're 70 years old, 80, 90, just remember the perfect example, Abraham. 99 years old, he cut that foreskin and he started having sex like an 18-year-old or 20, 25-year-old, whatever it is. And so for you fornicating types, those who cannot wait, go to Romans chapter 4, go to Genesis, and you could see Abraham and his wonderful blessing. And God is right there having Abraham shake his foreskin in your face, telling you, look at the wonderful blessing that's waiting for you. But here you are, you cannot wait, and as a result, you're going to miss out. So sexual prosperity, technical prosperity as well, whatever field it is, professional prosperity as well, whatever field of professional prosperity. And I always think about those who are just cleaning bathrooms in a certain business. And because you're there cleaning bathrooms, all of a sudden you're going to hear the vice president of the company and the president saying, oh my gosh, sales have skyrocketed. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need more workers. We're going to need more this, more that. Sales are skyrocketing. And this increase of sales coincided with your arrival at that business place. Well, it has to do with God blessing that place because of your presence there. God blesses people directly or indirectly in association with you, but that's point 3. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Mental prosperity. This is something that's very much needed today, especially now in an emotional society. A lot of youngsters, they do not know how to think. They're too busy smoking pot, smoking weed. With the weeds that are coming out right now, they're super advanced, they're super concentrated. I don't know how they can get any thinking done. Well, if people are emotional, they have no ability to think. But for those who are advancing in the plan of God, they're going to receive something also known as mental prosperity, which includes common sense. Common sense is hard to acquire now these days. Concentration skills. There's no shortcut to this. Either you get with it and you start acquiring concentration skills little by little, or you're just never going to have any concentration skills. It's not a one-day shot thing. It takes a while. But God gives you the ability to have concentration skills. Obviously, you've been learning Bible doctrine, and through that daily cognition of Bible doctrine, you've been acquiring concentration skills. But once you reach super grace, He increases them exponentially. Common sense. Wait. Common sense. I put common sense twice. I meant to say sense of humor. Excuse me. Sense of humor. As long as you understand what I'm trying to say. Sense of humor. Yes. By the way, humor comes from... Okay, yeah, never mind. Cultural prosperity. So this is the ability to enjoy culture. And you might say, what culture? Look at the United States full of this rap-ass music. And with just people dressed up. You know, like they just got out of bed. Everyone's just combed. All the women looking fake. With all the extreme layers of makeup. And there's no culture. Everyone's just shaking their booties and all this and that. There's no culture at all. But there's still stuff available. And without becoming a snob, without becoming pretentious, without getting into everyone's privacies and telling them, why don't you, become more cultured? You guys need to become more cultured. Without any of that pretension, you can engage and enjoy cultural prosperity. A nice opera, a nice piece of music, a nice piece of art. And also you might say, what art? Look at this art. A whole bunch of little scratches, paint's thrown over, and you just call it anxiety. Yes, there's still good art around, and God will give you the, first of all, capacity to enjoy different types of cultures, your culture as well, and be able to enjoy high standards of culture. But be careful. We are not to become cultural warriors. Do not become a pretentious ass telling everyone to become more cultured just because they don't know how to eat with chopsticks, or because they do not know what a poke bowl is, or whatever type of Indian food there is, or whatever. Establishment prosperity as well. This is where you enjoy parts of establishment, freedom, privacy, and you enjoy some free market enterprise going around in your own periphery. Leadership dynamics, very important. You could be a leader at your workplace, even though you're not a leader at the home, and you can still have leadership dynamics, great leadership dynamics. It goes along with mental prosperity. Stability of character. This goes well with the spiritual blessings. You become stable, stability. You can also enjoy health, but be careful. Just because you do not have health many times does not mean that you are suffering the sin unto death. You're probably just going through a test of health. Okay, third category of blessings is blessing by association. The mature believer is a blessing to those in his periphery. God can bless them either directly or indirectly through the mature believer during the mature believer's lifetime and after. So in other words, God can bless someone. Here you are, Estrellita, mature believer, and there are those in your periphery. Now God can bless them either directly because of their association with you, or indirectly through you. So because of your blessing, you bless them as well because of something that you have going on, because of your mental dynamics, your ability to create friendship capacity, etc. So it could be either directly to those or indirectly through you to them. Did that make sense there? Hopefully it made sense. So this is a blessing by association, either in the lifetime or after. This blessing by association continues after death. So if you care too much about your loved ones, and what is my son gonna do, and he's not done much with his life, and what is my daughter gonna do, what is my mother gonna do, or whatever, whoever's around after your death, just do not worry. God is going to continue blessing them after your death. Whether they have the capacity to enjoy this blessing by association, whether they can detect the grace in it or not, that is aside from the issue. The issue is that they are blessed because of association with you, because you cracked the maturity barrier all the way to super grace. Excuse me, that sounded terrible. There are 6 areas of blessing by association. A, the spiritual periphery, local churches, missions, prayer meetings, Just because a local church is associated with a super grace believer, or 2 or 3 super grace believers, or a mission field also has a super grace believer in there, or prayer meetings, there's a super grace believer in there who is a great prayer warrior. You might be a great prayer warrior, but you have to know enough doctrine to be able to know what to pray. And there are those people that immediately they pray and God listens to them right away. Prayers for about an hour to 2 hours, just intense concentration of intense prayer, praying, hitting the target in every single prayer, and God is answering them. Every single thing that they ask for. B, professional periphery, your organization, a job, a business. It could be a little club or whatever it is. And they are going to be blessed because of their association with you, a super grace believer. See, social periphery. Okay, see, so you might have a group of friends and they are blessed because of you. They'll notice it. Many times they're unbelievers and they'll be able to notice that somehow their life has become more blessed just because of their association with you. Now, they could also be very negative towards God and towards the gospel, etc., to the point that they refuse to acknowledge that they've been blessed because of their association with you, and they know that you are a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ. Okay. D, geographical periphery, and this is where your local government, your county, whatever region that you are becomes blessed. You could be in the place with the highest unemployment rate in your country, and that place starts becoming blessed because of their association with you. Also, pets, very important. Owner to pet. Your dogs can be blessed. Your lizard or whatever it is, they can be very much blessed, even though their animals do not have a soul, but they can enjoy a great life, great air conditioner, a great pool, or whatever, or just great food with you, or your great companionship. Owner to pet periphery, yes. And then there's also, the inheritance factor. Blessings to your loved ones after death. I got ahead of myself here, but this is the inheritance factor. There are believers who advance all the way to maturity, and there are ungrateful sons, asinine sons. You know, those sons are, they do not really follow the father's footsteps. They don't care about what their father is doing or their mother. But still, after the death, the inheritance factor applies to them. Those children are blessed because of their association with you. The association being, they were your son, your children. Point 4, impact on historical tendencies. This is where the invincible hero comes in. You become a hero, but an unsung hero, an invisible hero. No one knows that you're a hero. No one knows that you are actually being blessed here in your own country because of you. You're the one that makes time continue. God makes it go because of you, because you've reached super grace. In fact, those who reach super grace are the ones that perpetuate time here in this world. This is another doctrine that's very technical and we cannot go over right now at this moment. But yes, whenever you see an uptrend in historical tendencies, you bet that there are a few super grace believers in your country. But whenever you see a downtrend in historical tendencies, you bet that there is a shortage of super grace believers. And when you see the Bible Belts right now at this moment, always suffering hurricanes, not being able to rest, so many believers, yet so few super grace believers. God does punish through natural disasters. So, and when you see California, LA being burned, the forests, and all these LA people, moving out. There's an exodus of LA people going to San Diego right now at this moment, moving out, and you see, things, unrest. You bet that there is a shortage of super grace believers in the area. So you become the invisible hero. You determine how your country goes. If you see the rise of socialism, you bet that there's a shortage of super grace believers. If you see a rise of whatever terrible environmentalism, those psychotic environmentalist types, those that cannot live happily for one moment without knowing that there's some sort of contamination. When you see an uprise of those, you bet that there's very few super grace believers. So what am I saying? That when there are very few super grace believers, there's a downtrend in historical tendencies. But when there is a great portion of super grace believers in the country, there is an uptrend. And so when you see politics right now at this moment, and you see a lot of Barack Obamas on one side coming along, Barack Obama was terrible. But on the other side, you see also terribleness. You see Donald Trump, and we don't seem to find just the middle ground. That's a downtrend in historical tendencies. Very few super grace believers. And whatever goes in this country is a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual. Very little super grace believers. This is why you're here. Advance in the plan of God. You're going to experience an uptrend in historical tendencies. And the Lord Jesus Christ can come and become president. Jesus Christ himself can become president. And guess what? That will not change historical tendencies because he follows his policy. He remains true to the policy. And that policy is, if there are a few super grace believers, there's going to be a downtrend in history. But when there's a lot of super grace believers in a country, there's going to be an uptrend in history. And he can come and be president, but if there's very few super grace believers, that's not going to change a damn thing. He's going to remain true to his policy.